Now, there you have it. Some of the issues we're going to be looking at in the studio actually highlighted there. And one key area is actually to do with power, because a lot of, experts will say everything you do in terms of resuscitating a nation's economy, power plays a crucial role in ensuring that progress is sustained. And we have joined us in the studio the special advisor to the president on infrastructure in person of Ahmad Rufai Zakari. You're welcome to our studios.
Good morning.
Now, you saw the background reports there, Ahmad, and yes, power is very critical. And I know at some point, after, putting together the indices or the finances that have gone down the drain when it comes to fixing power in the country since our return to democracy, the president was actually forced to ask that, critical question to say, where is power? Now, today, I'm asking you the same question. Where is power?
Thank you, Sir Man. And I think you've highlighted the importance and criticality of power to any functioning economy. I'd say that this administration has taken a very clear look at the power sector, and I'll talk on the on-grid sector now. Which is really what we need for continued industrialization. And you really need to look at the issues in terms of having an ecosystem that works. And what has this administration done to make sure that power ecosystem works? We can understand that we've had one of the fastest growing telecom sectors. It's still growing if you think telecoms and digital economy. Why? Because the economics work, they incentivize investment, which now provides increased service for citizens. There are three key areas the administration, under the direction of President Muhammad Buhari and the leadership of Engineer Saleh Mamman, have looked at, the Honorable Minister of Power. One is your regulatory framework appropriate? So if you think about the challenge we've always had with the power sector since privatization, it's a question of, you talk about it as a catalyst for ease of doing business, but is it easy to do business in the power sector to even catalyze the rest of the economy? So one area is power producers, especially on the distribution end, Abuja Disco, Kano Disco, Ikeja, Iko, the ones that impact me and you as citizens day to day. The economics was not working. We were asking power distributors to buy power at, say, 50, 55 naira and sell it for 30 naira. And then government was intermittently making up the difference. What did that cause? Delays in payment of generation and gas, which disincentivized investment there. And then you had downstream players in distribution that were not incentivized to invest, say metering, for instance, that we've had challenges with. Now, with the introduction of the service-based tariff last year, which says that areas that are receiving power should pay the correct amount. Other areas that are not receiving appropriate power, we will give the distribution companies time to improve while the government continues to subsidize those areas. So the regulatory issues on grid have been set on the right trajectory. That work has allowed the on-grid sector to generate a record revenue this year of, in 1 month, 65 billion naira, which was a 63% increase in the amount of power revenue that the sector got.
Now, I recently, read from one of the papers that you actually disputed the World Bank, analysis saying that federal government spends at least $1.5 billion to meet the shortfall in country's electricity, and also claim that, the same World Bank, that 78% of power consumers in Nigeria get less than 12 hours of daily supply of electricity. You really don't believe in that?
No, I think there was miscommunication in terms of the representation of that report, which is why we had to come out and clarify and indicate that those were not the accurate statistics. When we engaged with the World Bank, which is a great partner for Nigeria, they explained that that data was for the period prior to the implementation of the service-based tariff, right? What we know now, based on the segmentation of band A, B, C, D, E customers, is that D and E customers receive less than 12 hours a day. That is 55% of the on-grid consumers. The balance is within band A, B, and C. And I will say, as we fixed the economics of the sector, as I explained, we saw that we achieved a 15% increase in delivered power simply by changing the economics. Now, in addition, on the infrastructure side, this administration has made more funds available in the distribution and transmission sector, where we lack more than any other administration. We plan to spend $3 billion plus over the next 24 months between the National Mass Metering Program, in-network investments through low-interest concessionary lending by the Central Bank of Nigeria and commercial banks to discos to improve. If you're in a band D location, they'll put in infrastructure, move you up so you receive more than 12 hours, and we can increase. The Siemens Presidential Power Initiative will boost our transmission capacity, as well as provide influx of funds for distribution. And lastly, late last year, I think you guys all saw the announcement where the World Bank is providing $500 million to the downstream distribution sector.
Now, before you go ahead, of course, this program is actually interactive, so our numbers will be on the screen any moment from now, so you can send in your contribution. Of course, we still have the special advisor to the president on infrastructure here with us in the studio. Now, before we look at other areas of infrastructure, when we talk about the ease of doing business in the country, I just want you to quickly, respond to this, because yes, we are generating. Niger Delta Power Holding, company came out recently to say that they are generating, and then we know that there's, a disconnect or a kind of a gap, a significant gap between what is generated and what is transmitted. Now, I also know that there's effort going on, to privatize TCN at the moment. So now, Nigerians, yes, all these are commendable from the expert perspective, but Nigerians want to see light. They want to see that they have constant and reliable electricity, because that is fundamental to engage in any kind of business you can think of.
So I think, Suleiman, you're right, but I will also say that this administration, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, is a fair administration, and we will continue to invest in the on-grid sector that serves our urban populations. But the president and the administration do not get enough credit for completely transforming the Rural Electrification Agency to provide electricity for the millions of Nigerians that are not even anywhere near to an urban area. If today you go to Rokota or Torankawa in Sokoto, Rokota in Niger, even Jengefi in Jigawa. Of course,
all these, with
off-grid areas
and alternative sources.
These locations have never had power. And today, these areas, from a mini-grid standpoint, some of them enjoy 24 hours. There's solar home systems that are being rolled out. We just went out last month with His Excellency the Vice President, as well as the Governor of Jigawa, who's a huge advocate and driver of the concept to make sure that rural areas are electrified to provide economic empowerment. So you can imagine we've created a 140 billion naira solar home or solar connections facility driven by the central bank, where we're providing low interest facilities to developers, private developers like GVE, Blue Camel and others, to go in and electrify these populations. Now, you will say that these locations, maybe 100 of these locations may only take 10 megawatts of power. That is a very small amount of energy, but for the impact on the lives of those people, it is tremendous. And anywhere you bring light, you see a market prop up, you see night economic activities, even a solar street light sometimes, not even power at locations, can amplify the effect. And 140 billion naira is a significant investment in that sector.
I know that also the federal government has presidential power initiative agreement with the Siemens in Germany, and of course a lot of people are projecting that if this is actually actualized, it will go a long way in solving the power challenge we have in the country. Now, bring us up to date with this agreement.
So where we are, I'll start out by our gap, just so everyone can put it into perspective. Some estimates have a gap in distribution, even to get to a basic level of power for all the population at more than $10 billion. Our gap, if you add in transmission, let's not even talk generation, because we know generation is bigger than both those segments, is, you can add maybe up to $30 billion in total. And what under the leadership of Engineer Saleh Ahmad, the administration is doing is saying any available funds for infrastructure in the power sector, we will access them. So the Siemens Presidential Power Initiative will bring in northwards of $2 billion into the sector, some for distribution, some for transmission. On an emergency basis, under the leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria, we've provided funds for metering, right? The first fund, as they announced, was about 59 billion, and everyone is getting meters. We've rolled out more than 400,000 of them out of a million. We've delivered about 600,000. And then we have facilities for the discos and partnerships with TCN for about 240 billion. So if you add all of these funds, that's why I say we are putting in more than $3 billion. The regulator, NERC, working with the Power Ministry and other power stakeholders, such as the Power Sector Reform Working Group led by His Excellency the Vice President, have looked at if a disco has 100 projects to improve power in, say, Kano or Ikeja's network. What we're saying is, let us allocate the funds across your projects. Okay. Which ones would Siemens PPI do? Which ones will you get from the central bank emergency funds? Which ones will come from World Bank funding? So we have a very clear trajectory that in Ungwarimi, this is the investment that will be made. Okay. In Taroni or in Bagada, these are the investments that will be made. So really, we are taking an approach of every funding available we're going to take to benefit the Nigerians.
Well, Mr. Zakari, I'm sure our viewers will understand why we are focused so much on power, because you have other areas of, when we talk about infrastructure development, we have other areas as well, not just power. But we have some couple of messages coming in. This one says the president has tried in the aspect of infrastructure, but he should put more effort in the aspect of security in the country, especially in the eastern part of the country, because killings have been done every day in areas like Imo State and Onitsha in Anambra State. This is coming from Benjamin from Borno State. The next one says, but at Ondo town, lights, we only have light for 2 hours per day and 1 hour at night. Sometimes there's no light at all. Still, they charge maximum rate. This is coming from Namani M. The next one says, if power generation is stable enough in Nigeria, our economy will be okay and Nigerians will be happy. Without power, nothing is working, from Olubebe in Oka. Now, of course, this is, cross-section of Nigerians talking about different aspects of power supply. Now, let's look at other areas of infrastructure. Of course, this administration has actually focused on power, but what are other areas of infrastructure that is gaining traction in your effort to ensure that we make a business environment in Nigeria easy?
So I'd say that one of the legacies for Mr. President's administration will be infrastructure. I think we'll look back at this administration and look at Mr. President as the infrastructure president. It's not only power that the administration has focused on. We've come up with very innovative ways to finance infrastructure. Working with the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Sovereign Investment Authority, and the infrastructure ministries. So for instance, the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund that is under the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, or the Sovereign Wealth Fund as we call it, is investing in Abuja Kano rehabilitation, the second Niger Bridge, as well
Abuja Kano rehabilitation of what?
The road.
Okay.
The second Niger Bridge and Lagos Ibadan. Those projects are significantly advanced. They'll be substantially completed by the life of this administration, and these are very critical corridors that are being rehabilitated and constructed to ease business and transport and security. And those funds are being generated through an innovative financing mechanism with the Sovereign Investment Authority. If you look at the East-West Coastal Rail that was recently launched by Minister Amechi, that will open up significant traffic between the East and the West. If you look at the Kano to Maradi rail line that was also approved at FEC, you'll see that is also creating an opportunity to increase trade with our neighbor to the north, Niger, as well as integrate some of our agricultural supply chains. And lastly, I'd say even brownfield projects that have struggled. Say, for instance, in the East, the Aba independent power plant or independent power production with Geometric that has been mired in litigation and preventing about 120 to 160 megawatts from getting to the grid. We've resolved that issue, and you should see Aba having a very innovative power structure for that industrial cluster. So I would say that, and lastly, Infraco the NSIA, the Africa Finance Corporation, and the Central Bank of Nigeria leading are investing ₦1 trillion into a seed fund that will end up being about 15 trillion naira in assets and liquidity to tackle some of our largest infrastructure problems. All of this is still not going to be enough to meet our large targets as a country, but the administration understands that we can't do it alone with government. So we're catalyzing investment from many avenues to put into infrastructure.
But would you say that Nigerians are just being critical? Because most of these things you're saying, if you go out to the streets, it's likelihood that they will contradict almost everything you are saying. Is it that they are not seeing the effect of some of these reforms and all of that?
So I think, you're
wrapping up this conversation now.
Yeah, I think infrastructure is something where you feel it, right? And you see it. Some of this infrastructure is visible. Okay. For example, I go by road mainly to Kano to assess the progress on the project. Anybody who's been on that road knows that that is a world-class road. I've been on the Lagos-Ibadan road as well. It's not arguable that these investments are going on. But there's some other investments that you don't see. The AKK pipeline is off the road. It's in the bush. So unless you go there, or unless you see pictures, you think it's not going on. But 30 kilometers of line pipe arrive this country every month and are going to work to integrate our gas value chain from the south all the way up to the north. So, but infrastructure is beneficial to citizens when it creates jobs and they can have economic opportunities. So our focus is finishing this infrastructure and having the outcome of jobs be created so that everybody can feel the benefit. Because infrastructure, just to look at, as you said, is not necessarily meeting the outcomes. But we're confident that with the leadership of Mr. President and the work that the administration is doing, we'll make significant progress during the life of this administration.
Well, thank you very much. And let me just take one or two messages here. This one says, good morning. Tell me why government cannot take over the power sector, knowing too well that the power is key to the economic development. That's an interesting question. But experts will say the privatization of power sector is actually a very good move for the federal government as well. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ahmad Rufai. Zakari, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Mr. Ahmad Rufai is actually the special advisor to the president on infrastructure. Now, while the government is making an effort, I know as individuals we also have a responsibility. We have a role really to play in ensuring that we make that business environment, easier to navigate in our territory. Now, customer service is one key area that is very, very critical, I must say. So this next report will actually guide us on what we expect from there.